in the deepest stretch of unlit space, where the only light came from the cold shimmer of distant stars. A sector marker pulsed red on the Zaldari Admiralty's tactical map. The word beside it was short, ancient, and universally ignored: humans. The council chamber aboard the dreadnought Spear of Eternity glowed in dim cobalt tones, its walls carved from metallic stone imported from their empire's core worlds. 12 alien commanders sat around a projection sphere, showing the spiral arms of the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Jarvik's eyes, black pools, rimmed with bioluminescent gold, narrowed as he reviewed the outdated conquest logs. A single entry, time-stamped over 4 centuries ago, flashed with an unmistakable warning tag: "Do not engage human space." He tilted his head toward his fellow officers. For centuries of silence, and yet this relic remains in our records. A precaution from a primitive age. Who here believes the humans are still a threat? The chamber rippled with laughter, low, clicking sounds mixed with the rumble of deep-throated amusement. They were a frontier species, one captain scoffed, unrefined, scattered. I doubt they could even sustain interstellar war for a single decade. Then, why the warning? Jarvik asked. The room quieted briefly, but it was the quiet of arrogance, not uncertainty. They were dangerous. Once, Commander Sechtel offered, but that was before the Purge Wars reshaped this region. I suspect the warning was political, meant to avoid costly resource skirmishes in the past. Now, they are ripe for harvest. Jarvik's clawed hand tapped a sequence on the holomap. A cluster of blue lights bloomed over a small world, labeled Varela 7, a human colony far from any major military hub. Remote, isolated, no orbital fortresses, no warfleet. They will be taken in hours. His gaze hardened. And this will finally erase the absurd myth of human danger from our archives. The decision was unanimous. The fleet's course shifted. Engines lit the void with streaks of ultraviolet flame. Hours later, from the bridge viewport, Varela 7 looked deceptively peaceful. White mountain chains crowned its equator. Dust storms painted burnt orange swirls in its southern hemisphere, and glittering freshwater lakes dotted its valleys like polished glass. The first reconnaissance reports were almost insulting in their simplicity. No sign of defensive fire, no spaceborne intercept craft, and minimal electronic traffic. The humans hadn't even bothered to raise planetary shields, if they had them at all. They sleep in the shadow of an empire they cannot fathom, Jarvik murmured. Ignorance is a gift we will take from them. Dropships broke formation and plunged into atmosphere. The air burned gold against their armored hulls, shattering into rolling contrails that trailed for miles. On the surface, the alien landing craft settled in the colony's central square, with hydraulic hisses. The streets lay empty, still displayed goods. A street vendor's cart was overturned, its fruit rolling into gutters. A child's ball drifted slowly across the road, moved only by the wind. The squad commander knelt beside a table outside a cafe. Steam still curled from untouched mugs. They left in haste, he observed. No, said another, scanning the area. They left in the middle of something. A faint creak echoed through the air. Somewhere, a door swung slowly on its hinges. No birds sang, no engines rumbled. Not even the distant thrum of human industry could be heard. The silence wasn't just unnatural, it was deliberate, in orbit. A junior sensor officer hesitated before speaking. Admiral, the colony's life signs are odd. We detect no concentrations of human presence, yet environmental indicators suggest activity within the past hour. Jarvik didn't look up from his chair. Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach. Primitive instinct, fear. The officer swallowed. And if it isn't fear, sir? The Admiral allowed himself a small, cold smile. Then it will be the last mistake they ever make. The dropships descended like iron fangs through the pale blue atmosphere, cutting vapor trails over jagged mountain spines. From above, Varela 7 looked alive, Forest canopies swayed in the wind, rivers glinted like molten silver, and the townships stood neat and orderly, their streets clean, their homes untouched. Yet there was no movement. Not a single human in sight. It was as if the colony had exhaled once, and never breathed again. On the ground, Squad Captain Relkath stepped down from the lead transport, his boots thudding against cracked stone. The air was crisp, laced with the faint scent of pine. Around him, the rest of his strike team fanned out, weapons ready, scanning doorways, and rooftops dot shadows stretched long across the square. A gust of wind rolled an empty stroller across the cobblestones. It bumped gently against a fountain, its water still running, splashing softly in the silence. "This is wrong," muttered one of the soldiers, his voice crackling over comes. "Focus," Relkath snapped, though his own frilled neck twitched with unease. "The colony is deserted. Sweep for supply caches and tech." The team split up, their boots echoing down narrow streets. First Signs Private Chas entered a small home near the square. Inside, the lights were on. A half-plate game sat on a coffee table, food lay steaming on plates. An open book rested face down on a chair, as if its reader had stepped away only moments ago. "Captain," Chas reported, "the inhabitants didn't evacuate. They just stopped. Mid-action." Static crackled in the coms before the captain replied. "Stopped. Explain." Like Chas hesitated, glancing toward an open bedroom door. The bed was rumpled, but empty. A music player on the nightstand hummed softly, and then clicked off on its own. The stillness deepens in the marketplace. Corporal Vess examined overturned crates. Some were split open, revealing fruit so fresh, the skin still glistened with condensation. A faint buzzing drew her eyes upward. Dozens of small drones hovered at street corners, inactive but still powered. Her visor's targeting systems flickered briefly before stabilizing. A single word flashed on her HUD in jagged alien script. "Observed, Captain," she whispered. I think a loud clack echoed from a nearby alley. Vess turned. The alley was empty. She turned back and found the fruit crates righted, as if they'd never been overturned, in orbit. On the Spear of Eternity, the junior sensor officer frowned at his readings. "Admiral, thermal scans are showing fluctuating heat signatures. There are spikes. Large ones. They vanish when we rescan." Jarvik's eyes narrowed. "Equipment fault." The officer's frills flattened. "Sir, the spikes form silhouettes. Human silhouettes." The Admiral's talons tapped against the arm of his chair. "Increase scan resolution. Track them." "I'm trying, sir, but they disappear between frames." Back on the surface, Captain, Relkath regrouped his squad near the fountain. "Report." "No weapons stockpiles," Vess said, still shaken. "No civilians." "No." The fountain's water slowed, and then stopped entirely. All eyes turned to it. The basin's ripples faded into perfect stillness. Then, from somewhere deep in the city, came a low, sustained hum. It was so deep it vibrated through the ground, rattling the dropship hulls. "What is that?" Chas asked, gripping his rifle. "Tighter dot." The sound faded. The silence returned heavier now, as though the entire colony was holding its breath. Relkath activated his comm. "Orbital command. This is ground team. The colony is unusual. Recommend full." His words cut off as every streetlight flickered out. The mist rolled in without warning, dense, silver-gray, curling through the colony's streets like something alive. It swallowed buildings, softening their edges, turning the world into a shifting blur. To the Zaldari soldiers, it felt like the air itself was watching them. On the ground, visibility dropping, Captain Relkath's voice crackled over comes. "Thermal's useless, everything's reading as ambient temperature." Private Chas adjusted his visor, cursing softly. He could barely see the squad ahead, just shadows moving inside the fog. Their footfalls sounded too loud in the muffled stillness. "Command said this planet's climate isn't prone to fog," muttered Corporal Vess. "So where's it coming from?" No one answered. The first loss the squad reached the toppled Cums Tower on the edge of the colony. Its base was scorched, its upper segments bent at impossible angles. "Relay's dead," Vess reported. "Looks like." Her words were cut off by a faint thunk in the distance, followed by static. "Jor, you good?" Relkath called over Cums. No reply. The squad spread out, flashlights cutting thin spears through the fog. Where Jor had been standing seconds ago, there was nothing, just his rifle, lying on the ground, still warm. "Trackers," Relkath barked. Vess checked her HUD. Signals gone, not jammed, just gone. Something in the mist. They moved cautiously, tension crackling through the air. Helmet cams caught flickers of movement, a tall, humanoid silhouette darting between structures. "Contact," Chas shouted, spinning toward it. His weapon lit up the fog in bursts of white light, the recoil thudding against his shoulder. When the muzzle flashes faded, there was nothing, not even a footprint. "Was that a human?" Vess whispered. Relkath didn't answer. He was staring at the faint outlines forming in the mist, dozens of them, spaced evenly, like they were surrounding the squad. In orbit. The junior sensor officer's claws tapped nervously at his console. "Admiral, we're losing ground signals. 6 units in the last 90 seconds. Enemy engagement," Jarvik demanded. "No weapons fire detected, just silence." They vanish from Cums and bio readings simultaneously. The Admiral's frills tightened. That's impossible, unless he stopped himself. He didn't like the thought forming in his mind. The second lost Vess's voice rose over Cums. "Captain Chas," is a wet, choking sound, cut her off. Her helmet feed tilted violently, spinning across cobblestones before landing sideways. The cam caught a single blurred frame, black armor, a human visor reflecting the dim glow of alien HUD readouts, before the feed went dead. Relkath swore. "Fall back to the dropships now. Retreat." That isn't. They moved in tight formation, weapons trained outward. The mist shifted against the wind, curling toward them like tendrils. One soldier screamed as he was yanked backward into it, his clawed fingers scraping grooves into the street. His screams cut off mid-breath. "Move," Relkath bellowed. Forcing himself not to look back, they emerged into the central square, only to find it empty. The dropships were gone in orbit again. The bridge went silent as the fleet watched the ground team's last telemetry wink out. One after another, the icons faded until the entire landing force was represented by a single blinking dot. And then that dot, too, disappeared. Night on Varela 7 fell unnaturally fast. The sun's last light was smothered not by darkness, but by the mist, now blackened, thick, and pulsing as if it breathed. Street lamps flared once, twice, and then guttered out, leaving the colony in a dead, starless void. On the surface, Captain Relkath crouched in the shadow of a stone archway, forcing his breath to steady. The remnants of his squad, only 5 now, stood close, weapons up, scanning every shifting patch of fog. Their Cums were deathly quiet. No one dared speak above a whisper. "Movement," hissed Vess, pointing toward a narrow street. Shape slender, human silhouettes slipped in and out of the mist. They didn't run. They glided, with the precision of soldiers who knew exactly how far their prey could see. "Stay sharp," Relkath muttered. "If they come close, light them up." But the shapes never came closer. They were hurting them. The first strike had happened without warning. A soldier at the rear jerked violently, a curved blade punching clean through his armor from behind. He collapsed with a strangled gurgle before anyone could fire. The squad wheeled around, weapons blazing into the mist. Muzzle flashes revealed nothing, just empty space where the attackers should have been. Something metallic clinked against the ground. Relkath glanced down to see the soldier's helmet rolling toward him. Visor shattered inward. In the mist from somewhere ahead, a low click echoed. Not mechanical, organic, almost like a tongue against teeth. Then came the hum of an energy weapon charging, and a single suppressed shot. The next soldier dropped instantly, a neat, smoking hole through the center of his forehead. No scream, no warning. Vess's breathing was ragged over comes. They're picking us off. Her voice cut as a shadow lunged from the fog, slammed into her, and dragged her out of sight in less than a heartbeat. In orbit, on the Spear of Eternity, Admiral Jervik watched the dwindling icons of his ground forces disappear. The bridge crew avoided his gaze, their own frills twitching with unease. "Sir," the sensor officer said softly, "it's not random. They're eliminating in patterns. It's coordinated, almost rehearsed." Jarvik's talons clenched against his chair. "They're hunting." The choreography of Death Rolkath ran now, dragging his last two soldiers through twisting, Ali's heart hammering. Every turn they took, the silhouettes were already there, waiting. One soldier fired wildly at a figure on a rooftop only for another to drop from above and tackle him into the dark. His screams were short-lived. Relkith didn't stop running. The kill zone he burst into an open courtyard and froze. Figures were already there, 7 of them, perfectly still in the mist. Human armor, matte black, with visor glass that reflected nothing. They didn't advance. They simply raised their weapons in unison. Relkath fired first, a scream tearing from his throat. In the next heartbeat, he was on the ground, vision fading. The last thing he saw was a human soldier's visor, turning toward him. Behind the glass, something moved, eyes that burned cold and unblinked, in orbit again. The last ground signal winked out. Jarvik stood slowly, his voice low and dangerous. "Prepare the fleet. We're burning that colony to ash." But deep down, he knew if the humans wanted to be gone before the fire fell, they already were. From orbit, Varela 7's night side looked like a dying ember, small pockets of flickering light, where the colony's cities once glowed, now snuffed out one by one. On the Spear of Eternity's tactical displays, the ground force markers had stopped moving entirely. Not because they'd dug in, because they were gone. On the bridge, Admiral Jervik stood at the center of the bridge, his claws tapping against the railing in a slow, deliberate rhythm. No survivors on the ground. "Negative," the comms officer said, her frills pressed flat against her neck. "All telemetry lost." The sensor chief hesitated before speaking. "Admiral, whatever's down there, it's targeting us with precision. Each strike took out comms first, then life signs. It's as if they wanted us blind." Jarvik finished coldly. He turned to the gunnery deck. "Prepare orbital strikes. Level the colony. I want nothing left that can hide in that fog." The sky burns. The fleet shifted into Lorbit bombardment formation, their weapons bays yawning, open like steel maws. Energy capacitors hummed, glowing in deep blues and purples. One by one, plasma lances and kinetic warheads rained down. The night side of Varela 7 lit up with firestorms, white-hot spears carving through streets, towers shattering into molten debris. The bridge shook with each launch, and the crew exhaled in grim satisfaction. But on the surface, the bombardment didn't find human soldiers. It found Zalvari, Captain Relkath's doomed squad wasn't the only one to vanish into the mist earlier. The humans had driven survivors, shaken, disoriented, and scattered into choke points. Now, those choke points sat directly in the strike zones the fleet was targeting. Helmet cams in orbit showed horrifying clarity, alien soldiers looking up in confusion before being erased by their own side's fire. Back on the bridge, impact confirmations. But readings are inconsistent, the gunnery officer reported. "Inconsistent how?" Garvik demanded. "We're getting massive biosignature losses, but the coordinates match our own transponders." Jarvik's claws dug into the railing. "They moved our forces into our own line of fire, sir. They wanted us to fire," the sensor chief said, voice trembling. The second wave still unwilling to stop, Jarvik ordered another volley. More fire fell from the heavens, pulverizing entire districts. But for every hit, The humans were already gone. Slipping deeper into terrain the Zal'Thari sensors couldn't penetrate. One destroyer, Bloodfang, reported detecting targets in a warehouse district only to realize too late that they were firing on decoys. Heat emitters cobbled from stolen alien gear. Collateral silence when the smoke finally cleared on the tactical readouts. An eerie stillness settled over the bridge. No human casualties reported. No human transmissions intercepted. No human anything. But half the fleet's ground detachments were gone, erased by their own bombardment. The crew avoided Jarvik's gaze. They could all feel it now. The humans weren't just dangerous. They were orchestrating this with a predator's patience. A shadow in orbit, Admiral. The junior sensor officer's voice cracked. We have multiple contacts inbound, not military-grade signatures. Civilian hull profiles, cargo haulers, mining rigs, tugs. Then, destroy them, Jarvik snapped. Sir, they're armed, and their weapons are beyond our tech. The bridge fell into stunned silence. The first human ship appeared out of the black like a drifting derelict scorched hull. Patchwork plating, civilian ID code flickering. But when the Spear of Eternity's sensors swept it, the results didn't match the look. Beneath the rust and scavenged panels was a weapons signature strong enough to gut a battlecruiser in one shot, in orbit. Unidentified contact, bearing 183, the sensor officer reported. Hull profile matches a cargo hauler, but its internal configuration is, he swallowed, wrong. On the main view screen, the hauler tumbled slowly. Attitude thrusters firing in short bursts like a wounded animal trying to right itself. They're trying to look crippled. Jarvik said flatly. Destroy it. The gunnery officer locked on. Before he could fire, the hauler's cargo bay doors opened not to jettison freight, but to reveal a rack of rail cannons. The first salvo tore through the destroyer's Scourge of Dawn, splitting it along its midsection. The ship's core went critical before the crew could eject. The others arrive. They're not alone. The comms officer shouted. 6 more contacts, mining rigs, tugs, deep space, surveyors, all heavily modified. The bridge lighting dimmed as emergency protocols activated. On the tactical display, the alien fleet's outer perimeter began folding inward under coordinated strikes. The humans weren't exchanging fire. They were breaching and boarding. The first boarding destroyer. Bloodfang's comm channel lit up with a single panicked broadcast. They're inside the hull. Repeat, they bypassed airlock's gunfire. Rattled through the transmission, followed by inhumanly calm human voices giving short, precise orders. Then the line went dead. Jarvik turned to his security chief. How are they getting aboard? They're using our own docking ports. From the outside, the chief said, disbelief thick in his tone. They're cutting into them faster than we can seal them. Vanishing cruise minutes later, the fleet's chatter was filled with clipped, frantic messages. Deck 4 is clear. Wait, where's the crew of Deck 3? All life signs just disappeared on engineering level. No alarms, no breaches, just gone. The Iron Fist reported, losing all hands in under 3 minutes. Security footage showed nothing but flicker shadows moving just beyond camera focus. The trap closes, Admiral, the sensor officer cried. Our FTL gates. Jarvik didn't need to hear the rest. The display confirmed it. The gates were gone, their control satellites slagged, their stabilizers physically removed. No escape routes. Jarvik demanded. None, sir. They cut our exits first. He realized with a cold certainty. This wasn't improvisation. This was a plan, executed step by step. They were never fighting for victory. They were dismantling the fleet's ability to flee. The silent wrecks outside, the Spear of Eternity, the debris field grew. Zal'Thari ships drifted dark, their hulls intact but dead engines offline, power gone, life signs non-existent. They weren't destroyed. They'd been emptied. One mining rig passed silently across the viewport, towing the dark hulk of a captured destroyer. No lights, no crew. Just a ship, turned into a prize of war, in the Admiral's mind. Jarvik stood stiff at the viewport, watching his proud fleet die without a proper battle. The humans weren't fighting like prey, or even like predators. They were fighting like something that had already won. The Spear of Eternity had once been the pride of the Zalvari Armada fortress among stars. Now, her halls echoed with the sound of boots. Not Zalvari boots. The bridge under siege Admiral Jarvik's claws dug furrows into the armrests of his command chair. Every status display around him was a patchwork of static, alarms, and dead feeds. Crew markers winked out with unnerving regularity. Whole sections falling silent, without a single distress call. The ship's internal defense AI Sentinel should have been tracking the intruders. Instead, its voice was gone, replaced by an unfamiliar, soft human drawl over the ship's comms. Section Bravo clear. Move. Copy. No survivors here. The humans didn't shout. They didn't rush. They advanced like they already owned the ship. The desperate call opened fleet-wide channel. Jarvik ordered. The comms officer hesitated. Sir, there's no fleet left to call. Then open it anyway. The channel clicked live. Across the void, the remaining Zaldari ships, dark, crippled, or in full retreat, heard their admiral's voice. This is Jarvik of the Spear of Eternity. The humans are aboard. They have cut off every escape. You must. A burst of static drowned him out. Then, a human voice came over the open channel. End of transmission. The line went dead. Close quarters horror gunfire rattled through the aft corridor. The security chief stumbled onto the bridge, armor scorched, visor cracked. They're not just killing, he panted. They're taking people. Something struck from the doorway. The chief vanished, yanked backward into the dark before anyone could fire. A single shell casing rolled across the bridge floor. No one chased. The hull breach. The deck jolted violently. Minor hull breach, Section Kappa. The engineer called. Seal it. Jarvik barked. Already sealed, Serbit. The engineer's voice faltered. There was no decompression. Section Kappa was empty. They breached into a vacant deck. Jarvik's frills tightened in unease. Why breach into an empty deck? As if in answer, the lights flickered. One by one, bridge consoles went dark. The human approach on the main view screen. A human vessel drifted closer, its hull scarred, its exterior painted with the faded letters. GSV Resolute. It wasn't firing. It wasn't broadcasting. It was just watching. The sensor officer whispered, It's matching our rotation exactly. And then without warning, the lights on the spear went out. The bridge was swallowed in black. The final transmission. The emergency lights flickered on, just long enough for the comms officer to report, Sir, we've been boarded again. Multiple decks. Jarvik stood, his silhouette lit by the red glow. If I cannot warn the Empire, then I will warn someone. He opened a narrowband tight beam transmission, scrambling the signal so that even if it was intercepted, it might slip through. He began recording. They overlooked humans again. And this time, a sharp sound behind him, metal scraping against metal. The bridge crew froze. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Getting closer. Jarvik's frills flared wide in instinctive fear. He continued speaking, forcing his voice steady. This time, there will be no one left to the recording. Cut to static. When the Spear of Eternity's beacon reactivated 48 hours later, there were no distress calls, no life signs, just silence. The silent wreck. The Zaldari recovery frigate Glory's Reach approached cautiously, its crew expecting damage reports and survivors. Instead, the vast flagship floated unscarred, no burn marks. No ruptured plating, yet utterly dead. Her navigation lights blinked lazily, as if nothing had happened. But her windows were dark. Docking sequence initiated, the captain ordered, though unease threaded his voice as the magnetic clamps locked. The Glory's Reach crew stepped into a corridor still pristine. No bodies, no scorch marks, no signs of struggle. It was as if the crew had simply vanished. The bridge discovery. The recovery team reached the bridge and found Admiral Jarvik's chair empty. His command console was still active, showing the last shipwide security map, every deck tagged vacant. A file sat open, time-stamped 2 days earlier. The file contained just one fragment of audio, choked with static. This time, there will be no one left to. It ended there. Other wrecks beyond the flagship. The debris field was wrong. The alien warships humanity had taken weren't reduced to scrap. They were intact, drifting in perfect formation as if placed deliberately. No power signatures, no chatter, but every one of them had an air of waiting, like tombs in orbit. The last camera on the Iron Fist, a single camera feed, had survived. The recovery crew gathered to watch. The footage showed an empty hallway, until the lights flickered. Then a human figure emerged from the darkness, armor, blackened visor reflecting red emergency light. It stopped mid-corridor, turning its head directly toward the camera, as if aware it was being watched. The visor dipped once, acknowledgement. Then the feed cut to black. The pattern reports came in from across the sector. Ships missing, colonies gone silent, stations found empty but untouched. The incidents followed. No obvious supply lines, no territorial claims. The only common factor: every force involved had dismissed humanity as irrelevant before the attacks began. The vanishing days after the Glory's reach returned to base. Its crew began disappearing one by one. No breaches, no alarms, no signs of struggle. Just bunks left empty in the morning. The ship was quarantined. It didn't help. They're already here. Inside the hull, we just can't see them. The legend. By the time word spread beyond the sector, it was no longer a military matter. It was a ghost story. The humans didn't leave wreckage in their wake. They left silence. Freighter captains swore they'd seen derelicts drifting, their airlocks sealed, their hulls for those derelicts to vanish on the next sensor sweep. Some whispered that humanity wasn't reclaiming territory. They were reclaiming debt.